The good news is we're only going to have to do this for about another 2 years.
Okay, you may proceed, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm just looking for the agenda. Oh yes, someone sent me the agenda, and I got to find that. Sorry, I should look that up before the call started. I apologize. Who sent me the agenda this time?
I had sent you a script, but I can send it again right now, and I can send you the agenda as well.
Well, just the script. I'm looking for with that. I get only 10,000 emails a day, so I'm sorry. I had it all prepared and I closed everything like the intellectual genius I am. So you're resending it?
Yeah, you should have a new email.
Got it. Thank you. I apologize again for the delay. We will get going now. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Paul Bernards. I'm the chair of the Teal Live Audit Committee. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'll call meeting 7 of Teal Live Audit Committee to order. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology with members and staff calling in or connecting by video conference or attending in person at Toronto City Hall. Because we are meeting remotely, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can observe the meeting on YouTube. I would like to request that all staff keep their video turned off unless they need to speak or answer questions. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate on each item and during votes. I also ask that all members and staff keep their microphones on mute unless you need to answer a question or speak. If any members do wish to speak on an item, I ask that you wait until staff have presented. I will then ask if any members wish to ask questions or staff or to speak. If you do, please make sure your video is on and raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate your intention to speak. Now we'll create a speakers list. When voting on an item or motion, I ask members make sure that your video is turned on and raise your hands to indicate your vote. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the chair greatly acknowledges that the land of Teal Live Audit Committee is meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The chair also acknowledges that Toronto was covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Okay. If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. Okay. Can I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the Teal Live Audit Committee meeting from June 23rd, 2020? Okay. Thank you, Jillian. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have 5 items on the agenda. We will consider the items in the order listed, and we'll hold down any items that require a closed session discussion for the consideration at the end of the meeting. Our first item is 7.1 cybersecurity update. This is a report with a recommendation and a confidential attachment. I'll ask Clyde, CEO of Teal Live, to provide an overview.
Thank you. This is, I believe, the second time or third time that we've provided the information as an update for cybersecurity to the audit committee, and I'll pass it over to Dave McCracken and Bill Milne to give the update which they drafted. Thank you.
Hi there, can you hear me okay? Okay, so this cybersecurity update is it's quite brief. We've been monitoring our systems in-house and remotely to ensure all our security updates are in place and all laptops that are still online are connecting back, and they indeed are. We've continued our BitLocker initiative, we identified 39 laptops that are still online that we'd like to get BitLocker implemented on. We're about halfway there, and we've set a deadline for September 30th. We had a very slow summer for malware, virus, and potentially unwanted applications detected, and anything that was detected is now completely resolved. And for incoming email and spam, numbers are all within our expected ranges, and we didn't have anything unexpected happen for the summer so far. And that's a brief overview. Any questions?
I don't have any specific questions. I just want to take this opportunity then, because the chair of the digital committee is also on this committee, to discuss with the committee if further updates in the future are better served as part of the digital committee or should remain as part of the audit committee. Because there is a risk element to it, but there's also just the understanding of the technology side as well. So I put it to the committee to provide some insights on that front.
Thanks, Paul. I think, you know, I think we should get the other guys to sign some NDAs or something if we move it over. It's part of the reason today that I asked for us to do it here, but I'm very happy to do this in the digital committee if you guys think it's okay. I think the folks on that committee have a lot of cybersecurity expertise, and there's some, you know, commentary in here about trying to finalize the budget for next year's security program. I think they could help a lot with that kind of stuff. But yeah, let's get them to sign some sort of I don't know, it would make me feel better. They're all good guys, but you know, let's get them to sign something before we do that.
My suggestion would be that from an audit committee perspective, we look at it strictly from the risk side, and so it maintains part of the audit committee, but then it's also included in the digital committee from the perspective of what you're doing, what are best practices, and you know, how can you improve what you're doing. So really bifurcate the report into two aspects, because there is the technology side, which this committee isn't as equipped for, and then there's just the risk side, which is the whole thing about audit. So that'd be my suggestion. Unless I see Jillian's nodding, that's good. Unless there's any objections. And Gary, thank you. Okay, so Clyde, Bill, can you action that for the next meetings?
Of course, that's no problem. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else on this particular agenda item? I know we've looked at it multiple times. It's good to see here that the activity is low, but doesn't mean we should lower our guard. Then I will move to adopt the recommendations of the report. All in favor? Okay, I carry, the motion is carried. Our second item is RZ72, the second quarter financial results and commentary. This is a report with recommendations and confidential attachments. I'll ask Clyde and or Bill to provide an overview.
I'll turn it over to
Private session.
before we go into private session. I'll turn it over to Bill to give the overview of the second quarter before private session, but needless to say, this is obviously the quarter in which we entered the COVID-19 suspension of activity, and the numbers reflect that.
That's exactly what I was going to say, so I'll answer any other questions in camera.
Okay. Seeing there are no other questions in the public, I would like to hold this item until the end of the meeting as we require closed session discussion. When we come out of closed session, that's when we adopt this report?
That's correct.
Sorry, the city staff, I can't hear you very well.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Our third item is 7.3, 2021 operating budget, facility fee reserve fund, and state of good repair budgets. This is a report with recommendations and a confidential attachment. I'll ask our President CEO Clyde or CFO Bill to provide an overview in public session.
Bill, if you're okay, I'll just give okay. We practiced this in advance. So we are going through the gymnastics of attempting to provide a 2021 overview budget in an environment where no one that I know of can provide us with detailed information on when we will actually resume normal operations. So we have put forward a plan, which is an outline, which we would like the committee to consider. And I believe it's a good one. I believe it provides flexibility both for the organization and leads us responsibly into the future, but also provides guidance for the city and our other stakeholders.
Wait, which attachment is this? Sorry, guys, I'm trying to flip through all the different. Is this the RZ 7.3 attachment 1?
Correct.
Okay. Are we voting on this right now, or is this, sorry?
Paul, you're muted, just in case you were.
I got too many mute buttons, sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, this is closed, open session, so we'll go into close at some point, and when we return to open, we will vote on this item. Our next item is 7.4, capital improvements, Meridian Hall and Meridian Arts Center. This is a report with a recommendation. I will ask Clyde or Bill to provide an overview. This is not a closed session item.
Exactly. Thank you, Paul. Bill, maybe you and Matt, if he is on the call, you can also provide a little bit of an overview. I'm happy to hand it over to you. The one thing I will make note of, that there was a slight change, which hopefully the committee received it. We've changed the motion for this recommendation. That's because at the last minute, there's an opportunity for us to apply for a grant to help underwrite some of these costs. And so we're changing the motion, and thus we have a new motion before you. Take it away, Bill and Matt.
I can start if that's okay, Bill. The report you have in front of you, it lists a number of capital improvement initiatives that we would like to undertake related to COVID-19. Those initiatives kind of fall into any one or multiple buckets related to things that would be required for us to open, things that will generally help the public's perception and their feeling of safety for when we're able to open, and things that can generally help with the public health within the workplace, both for our patrons and for our staff. So there are three main items there that we're looking at. At this point, they are all unfunded. So these are all new projects. They're new initiatives. And right now, what we're looking for is to work with City Finance to help figure out where we may be able to find some of the funding for this. And the new recommendations that Clyde spoke of speak to some opportunities we have with Canada Cultural Spaces Fund, where they are able to provide up to 50%, usually in extreme circumstances. We're hoping to get up to 2/3 of funding, and then we'd have to work with City to find the rest of that funds. And then the other part of the recommendations is that if we are able to secure it, and only if we're able to secure it, for approval to proceed with the projects within whatever funding we're able to secure.
So may I ask a question? Matt?
Yes, sure.
Matt?
Yep.
There you go. Just people bounce around the screen. Is this spend a requirement for reopening, or is this a nice to have for reopening? I'm just talking strictly legal perspective, not obviously it's if we could just find money, we would do this for sure. But from a legal perspective, is this a requirement to open?
Not from a strictly legal perspective, no. There's best practices involved in it, but from a strictly legal perspective, this stuff, at least right now, some of these things are still evolving as we start to as the province allows more people to gather. but right now it's not a legal requirement.
If I could jump in here as well, Paul, just in response to the question, which is a very good one. I want to point out a couple things. One, that Matt and his team sit on different committees that are developing the protocols and best practices for our industry. Matt sits on the team with Ryerson University and the city, and also he's in contact with their national team in developing these kinds of protocols. So they've been working very hard to research the document that I think that a lot of different organizations in our situation are going to be confronted with these expenses. Also, with the building expenses, as you see, HVAC and other items, I don't think that we're unique in this. I don't think this is unique necessarily to theaters. I think this is going to be any kind of publicly occupied space. So other organizations, office buildings, et cetera, will also be confronted with these costs. I think that we're looking at all ways to mitigate them. The last thing that I want to throw out there is that we did do a wonderful public survey. And part of the response to the public survey that we did, although the results in detail are still being analyzed, but they were able to come back to let us know that definitely safety and security were incredibly important to the public. And the building safety and health and safety protocols were incredibly important to whether people would want to step back into the building. And so this plays, even though it may not currently be a legal requirement, it plays a very critical role for our communications out to our audiences that we're taking progressive steps to make sure that their safety is paramount.
And I think there's also a parallel to a degree, because I have kids in school. I'm very, very up on that while there is no legal requirement to update HVACs and school systems, that very much is a desire of the public for that to happen in some way, shape, or form. And the survey that Clyde spoke of, it spoke very much to that. As an example, 91% of respondents felt it was somewhat or very important for HVAC and mechanical systems to be considered in the light of COVID-19.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the first question is the legal side, then what's the right thing to do? But what this, there's two issues that come to mind on this, and they're sort of, they contradict each other. The first one is everyone wants these, so therefore they'll be hard to get. But so that's common A. Then the contradiction is everyone wants these, so I think it's incumbent upon management to get together with other like businesses and try to do some sort of group purchase option where you're not buying 5. Let's say you need 5. I don't know how many you would put in, but you're buying 500, and it's there's 30 organizations participating in this group buy, as opposed to Mervish doing their own thing, you doing your own thing, the opera does their own thing, the TSO does their own thing, or I guess that would be Roy Thompson Hall does their own thing, and everyone's fighting each other over getting the technology. Come at it as a group and say, we want 50 of these or 100 of these or whatever, and buy them together as an option.
So it's certainly a very good suggestion, and it also might be somewhat comforting to the committee to know that we're reaching out through TAPA to other organizations to do exactly that, but on a much smaller level for PPE requirements for the industry, and using Teal Live as sort of aggregator for that kind of purchase. So Paul, it's a great suggestion. We'd be happy to reach out to them. And also we're in contact with our city partners as well. So obviously we would be looking through the city and their purchasing, because again, it's not just for theaters, but I'm assuming that buildings across the city will have to be facing some of this as well.
Guys, sorry, Paul, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, Gary, from the city perspective, is the city looking at this sort of stuff in your exposure so far?
Well, that's what I actually want to ask the question to Matt. I think the city is, and you had discussions with finance staff. There's that component of what we can help out, but also on the needs-based. And I'm not too sure if these items would fit into the criteria that the province and the federal government are setting out with regard to the funding that will be coming to the city. But if you had those discussions and potential discussions of either these items or other items that could fit into funding envelopes that are presently working their way through to the city.
Clyde has had some preliminary discussions with Pat Tobin, I believe, on that, Clyde. And anything any deeper than that, those we really saw step two. Step one, we saw bringing this to the board to make the board aware of what we wanted to do. And then step two would be kind of go out and see where we can find funding, what might be available. But we didn't want to have it, the board blindsided by any, not knowing what the initiative was.
Okay. And again, speaking with Pat and then getting into finance, I think having the conversation with finance staff, and I'm sure with Steve Conforti would be one opportunity to see what options are.
Right. Thank you, Councillor. We also, I should note that we have been encouraged to apply for the funding, for the federal government funding for this particular item through our representative.
Perfect.
Is there, what's the sort of lead time on this equipment? Let's say you get funding, there's a group buy, whatever the program is, what sort of lead time is there to get the equipment and install the equipment?
It depends which piece of equipment you're specifically looking at. The UV lights within the HVAC units, that is probably the largest lead time. Last time we checked on that, it was kind of before the issue became prevalent within the education sector. But at the time, it was about 8 weeks lead time from being able to place an order. We'd have to sign a procurement, which would add another month or so onto it. So we'd be looking in early Q1 best case scenario for those sorts of things. For things like the cameras, those are relatively quick turnaround items. And then the smaller UV lights, those are also relatively quick turnaround items. And then the final item was the electrostatic sprayers. They're very popular right now, and they're probably a 6 to 8 week turnaround.
I recognize the size of the procurement requires some form of RFP, but from a technological perspective, all the stuff you're listing, this is not like new and improved, unique technology. There's a lot of vendors of this sort of technology, is there not?
There is, yes.
Does that then simplify an RFP process?
It does. We would, depending on which item we'd be looking at, the most complicated process would be the UV lights, because it would be the most expensive. There would be the need to get engineers to write specs and things like that. But ultimately, we aren't creating a custom design system. We're kind of looking for specs that would meet out off-the-shelf products. And with all the other items we spoke of, those are largely things that get manufactured. We can either quote something that meets the specification.
All right. Are there any other questions on this particular agenda item? Gabe?
So the things like, I'm really curious what the asbestos thing is. That seems like a big problem or priority. Obviously, thermal cameras, we need, probably people won't feel safe unless we're taking temperatures at the door. But I'm wondering, guys, like if we have, if we're going to spend all this money and procure all this stuff, by the time we get the equipment, there might be a cure. It might be in a year, right? It might be in a year and a half. So I'm wondering if what here we need to do and what here, maybe it's nice to open next year, but we might not need it in 2 years. You know, to spend $800,000 on something that might take a year to procure, and then there's a cure in a year. I don't know. Maybe.
If I can speak to that, most of these things
Sure.
do not have a shelf life. For example, going and purchasing electrostatic sprayers, that will mean we can clean areas faster, more efficiently, and things like that. Same thing with the UV within the HVAC systems. Those are things that will ultimately bring us operating cost savings. So most of these things here will outlive COVID.
Because I think some of the cleaning stuff, if we have contracts with cleaners already, can't we just require they use some of this stuff? I mean, I don't know. How much of this stuff do we have to buy versus we could mandate our vendors buy?
All of our cleaning,
yeah.
all of our cleaning is in-house, done by our own staff.
Oh wow,
staff.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
If I may, to the chair, the motion can be brought. I think only you saw the actual written motion, but the clerk is ready to post it whenever you're ready, whenever the discussion allows.
Yeah, if there's any other questions from the committee, all right, then let's post the motion. So my question is, when you say reply for funding, does that include funding from the city?
Correct. Yes, we're looking at any funding sources we can get, whether it's from the federal grant program or from anything the province may have or the city.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me, sorry. Carol, can you, I believe that's the wrong motion. I don't believe that that was what was sent over.
There were 4 parts to the motion. There were 4 points to it.
Yeah, this is Canada Cultural Spaces. This is the wrong one. Yeah, I'm reading going, I don't understand the motion. Okay. It was 7.4, if that helps.
Okay, we just, I think just the first part was missing. There were 4 parts to it. The second 3 were highlighted, so we thought those were just the only new parts. Sorry about that. It'll just take us a moment.
No problem. Thank you, Carol.
Hey, Matt, while we're waiting, could I ask about the asbestos? Did we find asbestos in the theaters?
Oh no, we're well aware of that. There's especially Meridian Hall. There's an extensive amount of asbestos through
Okay.
that. It's all encapsulated, so there's no harm to anybody in their daily activities. But once we start opening up HVAC backs and ducts and things like
Yeah.
we know that there's cost to deal with that.
And that's not something the city would, generally put in their general maintenance capital budgets at all? It's
Most of the time when we do capital projects that disturb the asbestos, that's just part of the cost of doing a capital project.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay.
Which is why with the Meridian Arts Center, you can see the costs are substantially less because we know based on when the building was built and the surveys we have had done, there's no concern of asbestos up there.
Gotcha. Interesting.
We have the
I work with a
motion.
company called FLIR, by the way. If you guys need help procuring the cameras and stuff, I know them pretty well. I can connect you guys with them.
Okay, great.
Just a reminder, because we are an open session, the procurement of items over a certain value would have to be a public procurement process. Thank you.
Of course, it's supposed to be public. It's 800,000. I just, it can be just a more efficient one because it's off the shelf equipment you're looking for. But the only thing I would want to consider in this motion is also I want you to report back on how you can combine our need with other people's needs as part of the report back to the board. So you still go through this process, securing funding and the like, but also figure out how you can be part of a larger group, because that could have a material impact on what this costs to do, and also what technology settle on. I mean, the last thing you want to do is settle on a technology that everyone else rejects, and you're the outlier.
Can I suggest some wording around that? the board of directors of TO Live request that the staff research economies of scale and best practices in the industries around the purchased items before and report back to the audit committee on those items prior to purchase moving
Yeah,
forward. Something
economies
like
of
that.
scale, group purchasing options, and then the rest you said yes.
Great, thank you.
So Matt and Bill, while this is being updated, let's let the city take this down. We can come back to this. We can at least talk about 7.5 and then maybe deal with the recommendation for 7.5 and 7.4 together. So why don't you talk about the roof while this motion is being updated, just in the interest of expediency.
Sure, I can do that. This 7.5 is largely an FYI report for the board. This summer, we ended up discovering a large, a reasonable sized roof leak at the Meridian Arts Center. We brought some contractors in to address that leak. As part of the repair process, we were able to peel back the roofing membrane in a couple spots. And what we were able to see was a concern. The roof is in very bad shape. And based on what we saw in these areas, if we assume that other areas of the roof are going to have similar conditions, then we think that we may be in, it's advised that we try to work with the city to bring the roof replacement at the Meridian Arts Center from below the line, meaning it's unfunded, to above the line. So we're kind of in that time frame right now where we would normally start to discuss these things with the city, looking ahead to next year. And so we just wanted the board to be aware that this could potentially be a bigger concern, and that we want to start the process now to address it.
So is this, roofs obviously have a lifespan to them and they're expensive to fix, and the 7.5 million, well, seems like a lot given that building. If we all know what it looks like, I'm not surprised. So this is not something that there's some sort of capital reserve fund built for, or there's not a long-term capital plan, that this shouldn't be a surprise.
What wasn't a surprise, we did a building condition audit about 2 years ago now, and the primary reason to have a building condition audit and keep them updated about every 5 years is so that we are able to plan for these capital needs. We went and put all the needs together within our 10-year plan, but some things are able to be funded and some things are not able to be funded. At the time, there wasn't, well, we knew that the roof was an item that would need to be dealt with sooner than later. There wasn't any immediate need to deal with it now. So now as an event has happened, we're able to reassess that. And we have, because of the event, we have the opportunity to take a deeper dive into the condition of the roof.
Is this on the long-term capital plan for the Meridian Arts Center?
It is.
It is, okay, because we don't have it in front of us to reference. Okay.
Yeah. And as I said, it was below the line unfunded. So our process here is to work with the city to see if we are able to bring it above the line.
Does it become urgent to be above the line?
I'm sorry, you cut out for the first part there.
So when does it become urgent to be above the line?
We feel it's urgent now, that this is why we're bringing this forward to the board so that we can have these discussions with the city. And so the hope is that we can start the process. Originally, it was conceived of as a 4-year project. There's definitely areas we can prioritize that are much more of an urgent situation than the others. But we feel it's urgent now.
And just to understand this project, 4 years seems like a long time to repair a roof. Obviously, it's done in stages. Is it more cost effective to do it all at once, or is it more cost effective, or just you're spreading out the cost because you're doing it over 4 years?
Generally, if you split a project that could be done in 1 year into multiple years, you're going to have about what's called a 15% phasing premium for each year. But ultimately, it was conceived as being split out over multiple years because the total cost to repair it in 1 year is quite extensive. So it's just trying to manage the cash flow.
All right, so this is a city, they agreed to this spreading it out versus just doing it all at once?
They often request for us to smooth out our 10-year plan so that there aren't big peaks, so that things are able to be more evenly distributed over the years in consideration of all capital projects across all venues.
No, I understand they have a lot to consider. It's just, I assume they weigh it costs more to do it over 4 years, but they want to split out.
I would assume that they've made that choice in terms of the direction they give to this.
Yeah, Paul, just let me add to that more than likely the splitting it out over 4 years will just enable us to bring that cost down. We're suffering some major financial challenges over the next 1 or 2 years. So anything that we can do, even though it may cost a little bit more in the long run, if we can spread it out to be able to give us the ability to get through the next 2 years, that may be an option. That's probably what they're looking to do.
Oh, I totally agree, Gary, that now it's a different world. I'm talking pre-COVID, it was still the same philosophy.
Yeah. But the main thing is the urgency and the severity of it. If it needs to be done, more than likely it'll be putting up the line once you go through that process with staff.
Okay. All right. Well, roofs are one of those things. They don't generate revenue, but they certainly can prevent you from earning it if you don't have one. So any other questions from the committee on this item? All right, then I'll ask the clerk. Let's go back to 7.4 for the motion, and then 7.5 for the motion back to back.
Okay, we can display the motion again for item 4. And let us know if there's any adjustments that need to be made to that part 5.
I'm good with the item 5.
And just by way of process, these are additional recommendations to what's currently in the report. So after you vote on this amendment, you should adopt the item as amended.
Okay. All right. So if I could have someone I'll make a motion that we adopt this item and put it to a vote. All in favor? I assume everyone raised their hand. I can't see everyone's hand when the motion's up. All right, so it's carried. Do we have to do anything else on this motion?
Now you should adopt the item as amended for item 4.
Okay, we'll adopt the item as amended. All in favor? All right. Can we move on to 7.5 now?
Yes, that item's complete.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to show the 7.5 motion?
I think you just have to move receipt of the item.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I move that we adopt the report as presented. All in favor? Okay, thank you. It's very hard for me to hear the city staff because they're not right by the microphone. Okay, so then members, we have 3 items, 7, 1, 2, and 3. Ask the clerk to display the motion that I will read out to move into private session.
Mr. Chair, I believe that the committee adopted item 1, so you've got items 2 and 3 left for closed session, and we've adjusted the motion, and we'll put it on the screen for you.
I'll start reading it while you do that. That Teal Live Audit Committee recessed the public session to meet in closed session to consider the following items: 7.2, 2020 second quarter results, 7.3, 2021 operating budget, facility fee reserve fund and state of good repair budgets, as it contained financial information supplied in confidence to the board of directors of Teal Live, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual negotiations of a person's group of persons or organization. All in favor? Okay. I will now ask the clerk to close the meeting to members of the public and only provide access to members and appropriate staff for the closed session portion of this meeting. In addition, the live stream will be suspended until the closed session is over. Members and staff, I would also remind you to arrange your surroundings so that no other person observes any part of the closed session debate.
If I may, to the chair and to the committee, if it's possible for the vice presidents of the organization to remain in the session, it's up to you, but from my perspective, it might be valuable and it would be good for their information as well.
No, that's fine. Clyde, Bill and Clyde, we defer to you as management as to which management you wish to keep in the meeting.
Great, thank you very much. So the VPs can remain. Thank you, Carol.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we're ready to proceed.
All right, we're just need then the motions, 7.2 and 7.3.
Okay, we'll do. We can bring up the amendment on item 2 for you.
Right, recommendation to be amended to read direction that the confidential attachment 1, blah, 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 remain confidential in their entirety because they contain financial information supplied in conference to the board at the Live, which, but we've already done this. Okay, but anyways, prejudice, the competitive position are significant with contract negotiations of persons, groups, or persons. So keep stuff confidential. All in favor? Okay, passed.
If you could also adopt the item as amended.
Well, that's what I thought we were going to do.
That's next.
Yeah, item
have to
two
do
had
the
item 2 had another recommendation to approve the 2020 second quarter financial operating results. So if it's your intention to adopt that as well, you should adopt the item as amended.
Okay, so we'll adopt item 7.2 as amended. All in favor?
Got to make one change to this
Okay,
motion.
passed. I just never know when you're going to put something on the screen. I'm waiting, and I realize I'm supposed to speak. Well, 7.3.
7.3, I'm just making one adjustment, and it'll be on the screen in a few seconds. Okay, Jennifer.
Something's coming up, right?
It should be coming up now.
Okay. Here we are. Request this President CEO Teal Life submit revised information for the 2020 year-end forecast and the 2021 operating facility fee reserve fund and state of good repair budgets for consideration at the meeting on September 3, 2020. All in favor? All right, carried.
And that's all
Is
you
that it
need.
for resolutions?
That's all you need on that one. Oh,
All right,
just,
then have we done the cybersecurity resolution?
I'm sorry, you do need item as amended on that one to direct that the information remain confidential.
Right, okay. So 7.1 remains confidential. All in favor?
Sorry, that was 7.3, item is amended to remain confidential, and then that's your last motion.
That's our last motion. Okay, so we already did 7.1. So that was 7.3, my mistake. And everyone's still in favor. So now just the motion to terminate?
That's it, and actually you don't even require, you can announce the meeting is adjourned.
No, it's terminated because if it's adjourned, we continue later.
Okay,
So we terminate, we don't adjourn. All right, so the meeting is terminated. I'll be
Bye,
back.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Very much appreciated all your help. Thank you.
I'll be back.